Welcome to the Purpose Focused Advisor, a podcast for financial planners, advisors, and RIAs looking to get the most out of yourself and your business. Join Rob Brown and Phil Calandra as they walk you through a journey that will allow you to take action in your business and your life so you can be the best that you can possibly be. Now here are your hosts, Rob and Phil.
Welcome back. Time once again for the Purpose Focused Advisor. Rob Brown here. Glad to be with you all today, and especially glad to be with Shawn Maloney. Shawn is the founder of Retire Wise. He is also the author of the book Priority of Retirement, which is also the name of his podcast. And Shawn's been at this a few years. Started in industry about 20 years ago. So we've got an industry veteran with us who's been through a lot of ups and downs. So Shawn, welcome to the podcast.
Rob, I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. It's good talking to a guy in Atlanta with that nice Southern accent. It adds a little extra energy to the show, or at least.
Well, I'm a transplant. I've been down here like 30 years, so where I was before doesn't count anymore.
Yeah, I'm a transplant to where I am too, but I've come up with this blended accent where nobody can tell where I am from, unless I go back to where I'm from, back to Cleveland, and they go, "You sound Southern now," and I was like, "Oh, really?"
Well, that's funny because I'm originally from Youngstown, Ohio.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that is funny. All right, well, let's jump into it, Shawn. I love to start the show by getting to know more about why you got into this business and why you serve the clients that you serve through RetireWise.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've always been in the financial sector and financial industry, but really honed in and focused in more on the retirement side of things. Our whole mantra there is that everybody works hard their whole life, so they deserve a good retirement, right? We have this Retire Happy framework. We talk about that in the book and whatnot, but too many of Americans don't have the right drawdown plans, right? They accumulate and they spend all this time accumulating, but they don't have a really good solid plan in place to distribute or draw down their plans. And of course that became very well apparent back in some of the market crashes, especially in 2008 when we really decided to turn our attention more to that side of things to get people prepared for and protect themselves. So going from a all out grow to a protect and grow, and that was really one of the driving factors. And we still obviously help people accumulate, but that's what shifted us toward the distribution side of retirement planning and putting a whole plan together.
Sure. So you mentioned retire happy. I love that phrase. Why retire happy? What does happiness mean to you and to your clients?
Yeah, it's a great question because we always start off the conversations with, right? We ask before we ever get into the financials, we talk about the non-financials, right? What do you want to do in retirement? What's your retirement why? What's going to bring you fulfillment? Because let's say at the end of the day, just like we work for a living, not because we necessarily love it. I mean, although we like what we do, but we're all working toward that day when we can retire. We all work, like I said, we all work hard for our whole life. So what's going to make you happy in retirement? You don't want to retire miserable. You want to be able to have the nest egg that can regenerate your paycheck, right, to satisfy those needs, and then move on to the wants and wishes. And those wants and wishes really start getting into the happy phase of things. But at the end of the day, you can sleep well at night if you have those needs met, right? So that's where the first happy part starts, right? And then the rest of the framework of retiring happy goes through those wants and wishes. So you can do what you want to do in retirement, whether it's sitting on the couch streaming movies all day or traveling the world. It's different for everybody. So let's define what your happy is.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit more, because I know in my work in coaching advisors and, a big part of what I'm trying to do is help them really define what their purpose is, what their why is behind what they're doing. So they're building a business that really helps them fulfill their dreams as they're making their clients happy. But sometimes that's hard to pull out. So I would imagine when you say retire happy, and I can picture, a couple, one's maybe like really happy and excited about retirement, has lots and lots and lots of things that they want to do, and the other one is,
Yeah.
Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, that just like doesn't doesn't believe in happy. How do you pull that out?
Yeah. And that's a great question because not everybody, especially out of the gates, is willing to put it out there. Luckily, if there's one person out of that couple, like you mentioned, that starts talking, you can usually get the other one going, right? But you really got to start giving probing questions. And to be honest with you, it kind of, not that it catches them off guard, but it kind of does, because they're going into this meeting thinking, all right, we're just going to talk about finances, right? And as most advisors know, you got to get to know your clients, and it breaks the barrier down a little bit when you start talking about them and you start talking about their families or whatever makes them tick, whatever's going to bring them a little happiness. And so, you just start asking those questions to probe a little bit and try to go a little bit deeper. And I define it's not as hard as you might imagine when you get people to start dreaming a little bit, right? And we tell them that up front. Look, don't put constraints on this, right? Say what your happiness is, and then we'll go from there. We'll see. You know, I don't say up front we'll see what your reality is, but basically that's what you're doing. How far into that happiness are you already built for on in your plan, and if there's any gaps, how far do we got to go, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And again, just kind of reflecting back on my process, that's what I call the first step in working with an advisor is dream big. And we just want to unleash the restraints. What are all the things
Yeah,
that you could possibly imagine doing or wanting to do? Don't worry about whether it's realistic or unrealistic. Let's just create a huge dream first, and then we can peel that back and align it
yeah.
to your plan in a way that that creates that journey. So it sounds like you're doing the exact same thing with your clients.
Yeah, no, exactly. Spot on.
The other thing that I think is important about this, and I love some reaction to it, is I've been having a number of conversations on this podcast with advisors where we've been talking about the fact that for many advisors, the planning process with clients has become really boring. And advisors
Right.
are having a hard time getting their clients to even come to review meetings
Yeah.
because they're like, Rob's just going to tell me the same thing all over again. This is what the market did. I'm on track for my goals, blah, 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 And,
Yeah.
but my thought is that if you get people into this happy mindset, if they're attaching you and the work that they're doing with you to what's going to make them happy, to their dreams, they're going to be more excited to come back because they know that
Yeah.
Shawn's just not going to talk about the numbers. He's going to make sure the numbers are coming alive in what's important to the client.
Yeah, 100%. And some of that is, it goes back to, be invested in your clients, and acting like, or they need to feel like they're coming to talk to a friend that they're updating their life with. I mean, I put it this way: I had a friend of mine. This goes back a ways, that wanted to work with us because, isn't it going to be weird? We're friends, and you're going to know all my financials and all this kind of stuff. And I said, no, it's not weird at all. First of all, it's confidential. Second of all, if you're not my friend now, by the time we get through the client process, you're going to be my friend, right?
Right.
Because we're going to get to know each other that well. Right. So I want them to think that, hey, we're just going to go have a conversation, a life update conversation, right? And we're just going to happen to talk about, oh, how your finances doing as well, and are you okay? Do we need to make adjustments?
So what's the process behind that for you? What is that repeatable client service model that you put into place so you can have those meetings?
Yeah, so of course we do the annual reviews, but we reach out with quarterly touch points. Whether that's a phone call or we make notes based on how they like to get communicated, right? And oftentimes it's a phone call, just to kind of have a quick check in, and you do the little things like sending birthday cards and birthday videos and those kind of things to keep you in the mindset of, hey, you're part of their team. So I think the more frequent checkpoints throughout the year helps out a lot, because if you're just contacting your customer once a year, they're going to come around, hopefully they remember your name and what you did for them. But if you're touching points with them, it's just like you're reaching out to a buddy to check in on them, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what we're doing.
So, are you intentional about making sure your clients know that that is um, your routine? Even though it may sound a little let. I mean, there's structure to it, but
Sure.
there's a kind of a friendliness to the, let's have an update, that versus let's sit down, once a quarter and do a review.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, we tell them up front that obviously, we tell them, look, we're gonna do those annual reviews where we go a little bit deeper and see how everything's going, make adjustments as you need it. But we don't tell them the frequency, but we tell them, look, we're gonna check in with you throughout the year just to see how things are going, how you're doing, and by all means, reach out to us if anything comes up. Right. So we try to set the expectation. They kind of catch on after a while what the frequency is, but
Right.
but I think most people appreciate it though.
Yeah. Yeah. I, maybe I'll just take a coaching minute here for you,
Sure.
because I love it when advisors are intentional about communicating what their communication frequency is, and being not just letting the client catch on, telling them up front and reminding them, because oftentimes that's a great way to get referrals and introductions, because I work with
Yeah.
Shawn because this is what he does throughout the year. They won't tell their friend about their financial plan or their investment portfolio or
Right.
anything else, but say this is
Yeah.
why I catch up with them. And one of the things I love to add to that, and um, I did some work a number of years ago with the folks at Supernova Advisor, and one of the uh, great things that they suggested in that communication model was to let your clients know that you have a rapid response service model. So
Mm.
here's this is how we communicate outgoing to you, but if you need help from us and you call into our office or send us an email, we will get back to you by the end of the business day or within 24 hours. And we may not always be able to answer your question right away, but at least we'll let you
Sure.
know we're working on it. And so communicating that can be really helpful. So I hope
Yeah. No, good point.
you'll excuse the coach coming out of me, because that's just a big, to me that's a big part of making sure helping make sure those clients stay sticky, give you referrals, and can really rely on you to be their guide to that happiness in retirement that they're looking for.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We're always evolving, always coachable.
Yeah. Thanks for bearing with me. Hey, so I'm also curious. You've written a book, Priority Retirement. The name of your podcast is Priority Retirement. Why a book? Why a podcast? Because that's something that a lot of advisors that I run into say they want to do, but they don't stop
Yeah.
and take the time to do it.
Yeah, it all started with the reason doing it. Well, we're big on. Let me step back for a second. We're big on education, right? So we like doing educational events. We like making sure our clients are educated on what they're getting into, what we're talking to them about, not just throwing a bunch of numbers at them and stuff. So yes, you can do white papers and you can do all these different things, to educate them. So that's one aspect of it. But then one of the biggest driving factors from an advisor standpoint, it's kind of a credibility thing, right? Now, I love our book. We spent a good amount of time getting it to where we wanted to, and I think it flows well. But at the end of the day, too, a lot of advisors, we get out there and we say, well, we're in this publication, we're in this magazine or whatever, and that those are good. But there's something about the book that when people see that you have a book, they put credibility with it.
Right.
Now, hopefully, the author is good and, they are credible, and we are. But I found it steps up the credibility level a notch. We also utilize it for that aspect of it. We'll drop an image of the book on, like, when we're doing seminars or bios that we have, or those kind of things, and then we also give a copy of the book to people that come to their first appointment, as well as a welcome gift. But it has helped with the credibility side of things for people that don't know you.
Yeah. I have not read the book. I want to do it. because I know that you work with Michael DeLon to do it, and
Yes.
I think the world of him, and most of the books that I've read that he has helped with have been very good. Um, but I there's a certain amount of uh, I like your candor about the credibility, because sometimes I think that is the one of the things that keeps somebody from writing a book is they think, well, nobody's going to read it. And the truth is, and I've written 3 books now, um, people read them, but not everybody reads them. Not even everybody who buys them reads them.
Right.
But
Right.
if you have a really good book that walks through your process and how you help people, it will help a certain amount of people. But and you can refer to it if somebody's struggling with,
Yeah.
how to understand something. Hey, on chapter 5, I did this, but it does
Yeah.
provide a great amount of credibility. And when you're meeting somebody for the first time and you've given them a copy of your book, they're going to come back because they're going to hold that in high regard. And I think, Shawn, you'd probably agree that writing a book doesn't have to be as hard as people make it out to be if you have a process for doing
Yeah.
it, which you did with Michael.
100%. That was, if it wasn't for working through Michael, it would have taken me a lot longer to do it. Because it's daunting. You think about writing a book, you're like, wow, I don't have time as it is. How am I going to write a book? But going through that process made it. I think we started in when we did it. We started in August or September, and we were published by March. And a lot of it was, yeah, we sent some written things. A lot of it was verbal and
Right.
those kind of things, just
Yeah.
kind of doing brain dumps. Um, it was a great process, and I highly recommend people do it. It's like an extension of it's like a business card on steroids,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put your heart into it, and you tell stories, make it a readable, not just a fact finding book. Like don't make it read like an encyclopedia, right? It
Right.
should
Right.
it should flow,
Yeah.
right, and tell some
You're
stories.
telling your story. You're go in that book. You are helping people understand, prospects who may or clients who already know you, how it is you work with them. So if they do
Right.
take the time to read the book or parts of the book, they'll identify with that. And Michael has one way of doing books, but there are a lot of other ways to do it.
Sure.
My way of writing the books was to write something every day, and I knew
Right.
if I kind of divided up the number of words that I wanted in the end, and I divided that by the number of days that I wanted to get to the point of having a finished draft, I was going to get
Right.
it done, and then
Yeah.
find somebody else to edit it and get it out into the world. But what about the
Right.
podcast? Is the podcast an extension of the book, and how are you using that in your practice?
Yeah, it's an extension of the book. We decided to keep the name the same for relatability and recognition, and it just kind of fits. So we are using it together in the podcast. What we're doing with the podcast is kind of a mix. We have a mix of different kind of guests. We actually have other people in the financial industry on just to kind of have a open conversation about financial planning, retirement planning. Sometimes with other advisors that are in the business, or adjacent things like people that are dealing with Medicare or tax planners or legacy planning, those kind of things. And then we also bring on guests that are clients to tell their story. Um, what made them take the step to get advice or to seek help with retirement planning, what their journey looked like. And then so we have it out there on most of the major outlets as far as the podcast goes. So we post it on social media. We use little hip clips and we post it. We put it out there. Use it on our signature lines and our bio sheets, those kind of things. It's just another avenue for people to get to know you a little bit. They get to know, hear you a little bit. And again, it doesn't hurt with the credibility side of things, right? Podcasts are popular, and not everybody's going to read a book, but people are more apt to listen to a podcast. And by the way, we record the video and put that on the YouTube channel as well. So I think it's a little easier digestible, than the book, even though obviously every episode we're not going through, the entire book. However, we started the podcast with going through the book chapter by chapter. So they can go back and listen to the first 6 episodes, and get the book per se. Although we have an audio version of the book too, but it just kind of helps all mesh together, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to me, the great thing about podcasts is that when I am working with a client or a prospective client and they are struggling with a concept and maybe it just the way that I am helping them, trying to help them understand it, isn't coming through, I say, go back and listen to that episode that I did with Shawn. And um, we walk through that, and maybe that'll help you to
Yeah.
see how I talk through that with somebody who's actually doing that. So I
Yeah.
love doing the podcast. And again, like people ask me, well, how do I decide whether or not I should write a book? My answer is if you're thinking about writing a book, write a book. To me, the same
Yeah.
thing is true, for the podcast. If it's something that you think will help you get your message out, just do it. And again, it's not hard. We're sitting here, for 30 minutes or so having a great organized conversation, and then we send it off to a production company
Yep.
who gets it up there. And it doesn't take a lot of work, doesn't take a ton of
Yeah.
equipment. I have people that I know who have spent tens of thousands, or not tens of thousands, thousands of dollars on a production room. And then I
Right.
know a lot that just have a really good microphone and
Yep.
a good camera, and then get on Zoom and do it. And it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be that difficult.
It doesn't take a lot, especially with the editing tools and production tools that are out there. They make it sound fantastic. They do a really good job with it. And to your point, it's not hard, right? I mean, think about all the conversations that you have as an advisor, or the people that are listening out there have as an advisor, right? With just your daily conversations. Whether you're talking to other advisors, you're talking to clients, you're talking to people in your office about business, about what you do. That's really a podcast, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And by having the podcast, you have the audio, you have the video, you have the
Yep.
transcription that can be turned into blog posts or emails.
Right. Right.
You can clip the audio and the video and have shorter versions, so you can have things
Yep.
for YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. So this one piece of content can can go a long way. And I know, again, that's another challenge that a lot of advisors I talk to have is, I hear that one of the things that I need to do is have a strategy for search engine optimization. Well, search engine
Sure.
optimization doesn't start without content, without something to optimize. And so podcast is a great way to do that.
That's a really good point. I've noticed an uptick. Once we started putting the podcast out there, and it goes obviously into all the different social media channels. It goes to all the podcasting channels. It goes to our YouTube channel. It has helped on SEO, and I see we have these little alerts set up to know when our name gets popped out there, and we've seen an uptick in that. It has helped.
Yep, that's great. That's great. So you've got a lot of great stuff going on. I love what you're doing in your business. Now let's shift gears just a little bit. When you think about your business and everything you have going on, what's a challenge right now that you're trying to overcome? Something that you're working on to kind of, because as we talked before we started the recording, one of the things that you said was that you are working on strengthening your business and getting it better. What's getting in the way of that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. We switched some partners who we're working with that's going to help us grow. We're really focused on growth at the moment. And so now our biggest challenge is how do we balance the growth initiatives with our current client base and staff, right? And so that balance, that's where our challenge is right now, is keeping the momentum going with the business, satisfying our customers the way we love to do, but yet you know grow the business with it's the challenge of how many hours in a day do you have and how many staff members do you have.
Right.
And that's our biggest challenge right now, is figuring out the growth model. How do we grow without imploding ourselves and or we don't want to jeopardize our customer service and the attention that we give to our clients. So that growth model, and how we do that, it's a combination of things: staffing, spend on marketing and where you put those dollars, trying to decide what's going to give you the best ROI for that growth. Obviously, you have to invest to make it happen. Those are the things we're battling with right now, is trying to figure out the right mix.
Yeah, that's I think for somebody in a heavy growth mode, that is a challenge. But it's a good problem to
It's a good
have
one.
because it means you're growing, the business is
Sure.
coming in, the opportunities are there, and you just want to capture them in a way that doesn't take away from your business, doesn't take away from the service you give to your existing clients. That lets you
Yeah.
build a team that really make that you have to make sure you have the right people on the bus, or maybe enough
Right.
people first, and then make sure they're in the right
Yeah.
seats on the bus because
Yeah.
that shifts around. So that's great. But again, I think a lot of advisors listening to this, at least especially those that I work with, that becomes a challenge. It's a great
It
challenge
does.
to have because there are ways to build teams and or change service models. A lot of things you can do to really work through that. So I appreciate your willingness to share that challenge with us. So
Of course.
as we get ready to land the plane here, um, what else do you want to share with the audience? Anything else that's important to you and your business and the way you're serving your clients that you think, as somebody who's been doing this a long time, is really getting out there and hustling to do good things for good people, um, should know?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about, and it's it's about being personable, right? I think too. I've talked to a couple of different advisors and people in our industry that we work alongside with, and that we meet at conferences, or they're part of some of the same partners and whatnot. And some of them even admitted they've, from some of that growth mode or just the challenge of the daily grind, they've start losing sight of what they're doing as far as who they're serving, right? And it's so critical not to get away from that personal aspect of working with your clients. Time and time again, have people tell us they appreciate us stopping and spending the time with them. Kind of like when you go to the doctor's office, right? You're not just a number and you're not just ushering them through the door. Someone that actually spends a minute to get to know them, have a vested interest in their life. And I know a lot of advisors do that inherently. And a lot of advisors just have that great personality to make that happen. But I've also seen advisors get away from that because the grind gets busy, right? But the biggest compliment we ever get is a couple things: is that people tell us, "Well, we've never heard that before." The way we're presenting it, right? Or, "Hey, we really appreciate you, taking the time." And we get these comments that they just feel comfortable, And I've gotten flat out comments. This isn't a bragging thing. It's just it's what drives us. It's like people say, "Well, we like you. We're comfortable around you. We appreciate that." So being relatable is huge. Being personable and relatable.
My take on, well, number one, I absolutely agree with you that you need to keep your personality in the business. If you started the business and the main reason that people came to work with you was because of you, then
Right.
you can't eliminate that from the business. You may not be able to give everybody as much of the one-to-one you, but you can make that happen. But the thing that is really important behind what you said is you have to be intentional about it, because it's too easy in this business to get successful and then stop doing things that work. But if you
Right.
know something works, if you know being relatable, personal, the guy, the gal that people love to come to hang out with, then you've got to keep that in your business and find a way to do it and be intentional about it and build it into your plan. So I love that you brought that up in the end because it's another um, great thing that we can learn from you. Because obviously you are I'm sure that we would love hanging out. The fact that you're from Youngstown and I'm from Cleveland probably uh, does part of that, and
Got a lot to talk about.
hopefully you're a Guardians fan. Uh, but
Well, I'm a transplant, so more of a Braves fan these days.
oh, I was reading for him last night. But anyway, I could talk about baseball for the next half hour, and I'm sure the audience doesn't want us to go there. So let's close out, Shawn. What's the best way for someone to learn more about you and what you do at RetireWise?
Yeah, the easiest thing is just go out to the website. It's retirewisepro.com. Yeah, if anybody wants to chat, we have contact links out there, phone numbers, emails, all that kind of stuff. That's probably the easiest way. Or you can hit us up. You can always find us on YouTube, all those kind of things as well. But all that's on the website, retirewisepro.com. Love to chat with anybody that's wants to chat.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Shawn, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I can tell by the way that that you talk about your clients, that you give them your best, and that is just so important in this world where there are more people who need the help of people like you than there are people like you to give that help. So congratulations on what you're doing. And to our audience,
I appreciate that.
Thanks again for listening in. We'll see you next week. And remember, we're always rooting for your success. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Purpose Focused Advisor. If you want to learn more, head over to our website, truestfancoaching.com. There you'll learn all about becoming a purpose-focused advisor. You'll also find today's show notes and links to the other gifts and resources we talked about during the episode. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, we're rooting for your success.